Good morning. So here we are continuing on our video about these plants, tropical plants, and how they perform in middle winter. We're still in the middle of winter. It is actually a balmy 60 degrees today. Finally saw the sun for the first time in weeks. So while everything is struggling, if you look at it, Mexican papaya, it's basically in survival mode, which is what I want these guys to be in. Even the ingas are showing signs of frost damage, of course. But there is one tree that with some care for the first year or two has the potential to be very, very resilient in the Central Valley. And that would be the starfruit, actually. So wanted to show you. So this starfruit tree is actually the starfruit tree that was rescued. I did a video on it a year ago. It's making a very respectable comeback. It is a carry starfruit. As you can see, it's planted mostly in the shade. So one cool thing about starfruit trees is they're very, very versatile in that they're very flexible in terms of light exposure requirement. They can be planted in full sun. It's able to handle our sun without any issues, unlike the sapotes and the cipadellas. These guys can take the sun without problems. With some winter, though, they will prefer some winterization protection for the first year or two, and then once they pass that, once they're established, they're generally fine. So carry starfruit. We've got a few more back here. So that's a carry starfruit. Coming over here, the more matured ones. So this tree is reaching a good 15 feet or so now. It's actually the same age as that rescue starfruit tree. Big difference in terms of night and day. But this guy is loaded with fruits. It's actually been loaded with fruits for the past couple of seasons now. The cool thing with carry starfruits, well, starfruits in general, is very, very productive trees. These trees just want to fruit year round, and they really do fruit year round. In the Central Valley, we get two fruits, one generally in the summer and one in the winter. So these fruits will likely ripen in February or March. So we've got a few more months to go. Another carry starfruit. This one is actually one of the very first starfruit that we had in the ground. When we first got it, it was about maybe 2.5 feet high, but it's making a very good, it's growing really nicely. So a couple of pointers about starfruits. They are fast-growing trees. With that being the case, structurally, they need a lot of support. As you can see, it's I've got the trees are structurally supported with these ropes in the house. These trees grow really quick. The unique position about these two trees is they are sandwiched between my house and my neighbor's property, which would mean in the wintertime, I actually don't have to protect them at all. The radiant heat from the house alone is able to provide enough heat during the frost to keep them nice and warm. I will say, though, another pointer about starfruits is their enemy, in addition to maybe the frost, the biggest enemy is going to be the wind. You're going to want to somehow find a way to provide some wind protection against these trees. What these two trees, in the position that they are relatively protected against the wind. So, yeah, carry starfruits, very fast growing. very tolerant of our clay soil. Though that's not to say that you shouldn't amend the soil. You always really want to amend the soil, but they are quite tolerant of our clay soil. I will now take you to the back where I've got a few more examples to show you. Here we are in the backyard. The two trees that I'm about to show you is possibly more realistic expectation of what you might encounter in the first winter or two when it comes to the cold tolerances of starfruit trees. So this one is another carry. When we first got it, put it in the ground, I want to say October of that year. The winter of that year basically knocked it down. I mean, it really was, when I did a scratch test, about maybe 6 inches width of from where the roots are up to the top, basically the stump of the tree was green. So chopped everything down, put it in a container, made a respectable comeback, and just last year we actually decided to just put it in the ground. So that's probably, well, I don't want to say that's probably what you're going to encounter. That may be what you encounter in the first year when it comes to these starfruit trees without any protection. But again, just like the two trees in the front, if you are able to provide some microclimate, being sandwiched between a house, being grown next to a brick fence, even a wooden fence, something that will just keep them just slightly warmer than if it were just in the bare ground, they generally do a lot better. So another carry. I got another one back here. Identical situation, really, just like the other carry starfruit. This carry starfruit also, when we got it, put it in the ground, winter came, also knocked it severely down. I mean, back then, I mean, my yard really had almost no microclimate happening. Now it's, you know, you've got the Inga right there providing a lot of protection next to this. Even this BQ Longin is providing a lot of protection. But first year we got it, yeah, winter came, knocked it severely down. And then it actually made a respectable comeback. But then the following year, unfortunately, a lot of fell on it. I had to also chop it down severely. So as you can see, I mean, you've got a bunch of new growth that's coming out of it. So it is making a very good comeback. You know, on this particular tree, I'm trying to train it to contain more of a central leader shape, just because it is so densely packed in this section. And see that pond right there? It actually provides just a little bit of warmth to the nearby trees. In addition to the warmth, it also provides some humidity in the summertime that the tropicals need. But by having it next to a smaller pond like that, water source, it actually in many ways keeps the tropicals here nice and warm. So carry starfruit, I should mention, the reason why I keep picking on carry starfruits, there are a number of varieties, but the reason why I keep getting carry starfruits is the fact that really carries are perhaps the sweetest variety of starfruits. So that's why I've got a bunch of them. Last starfruit, this one right here. So to date, this one has yet to fruit. And the reason for that is, I mean, although it is approaching 13 feet tall, the reason why it hasn't fruited yet is this was actually grown from seed. I want to say it's been in the ground for 4 years, so there's a very good possibility that either next year or the following year it should start producing some fruits for us. I have no idea what the variety is. I mean, initially I suspect it might have been the sour variety, but I don't know. So we're just going to have to wait until we try out the fruit. So the cool thing with starfruits in general is they are very flexible in terms of sun exposure. If you notice, most of my starfruits back here in the yard are relatively protected from the sun in the sense that it's mostly grown in the shade. They do fine in the shade. They will produce fruit. The 3 starfruits in the front yard, though, when we get 100 degrees, 110 degrees temperature in the summertime, they're actually, starfruit trees are actually one of the trees that are slightly smarter or more intelligent than your average tree, in the sense that the leaves, the foliage, have the capacity to react and essentially protect themselves from the intense heat. For example, the three trees in the front, when it gets too hot, the tree actually almost behave like this, where they will fold the leaves inward to minimize the sun exposure. Whereas if you're getting, if the sun exposure is correct, it's going to open its leaves out to get the maximum amount of sunlight. So just like the mimosa tree, just like a tamarind tree, these have the ability to almost react to their sun exposure. So again, in summary, starfruits, very tolerant of our soil, clay soil. Again, you'll want to amend it just a bit when you plant it in the ground. Makes an okay container grown tree, but ideally in the ground it would be a lot better. Quite tolerant of our winter, just first year or second year, just give them some protection if you can. If not, I mean, you've seen my two trees, that's what they are going to do when, winter hits. But after that, though, once established in the ground, they're relatively fuss-free. Produces a ton of fruits. I mean, you've seen the trees in the front. I don't know if you've seen some of the fruits that fell on the ground, but I generally don't prune my trees, as in take off the trees, the fruits, and instead I just leave that process to the trees. I mean, the tree will know how much fruits it can support, and then they'll just drop the ones that it can't. So just let the tree do its thing. So heavy producer, yeah, and the fruits themselves. If you exercise, do any sort of aerobic activity, it is going to be your best friend. I mean, super low in calorie, about 50 calories of fruit, and these fruits are like the good-sized fruits, very sweet, very juicy. So anyhow, yeah, starfruits growing here in the Central Valley with minimal protection. But yeah, this is what you can expect when you're growing starfruits through winter. All right, have a good afternoon.